Um, we quickly move on to the next bit. We have with us eminent Shri Atul Bagai, who is an IAS retired, former head of United Nations Environment Program, Country Office and India, and chairman of Network for Certification and Conservation of Forest, NCCF. So if we can have Shri Bagai to the podium, please. Thank you. Can you have a round of applause for Mr. Bagai?
Good afternoon, everyone. And at the outset, I would like to thank Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry for inviting me, and also thank my old contemporary friend from college, Dadadev, for thinking about me for such an august event. I know I'll be keeping you all away from lunch, which is already delayed, so I won't take long, but I wanted to highlight a few issues from a perspective of an industry association. And I must also congratulate the Chamber for the excellent brochure that you have brought out, which gave me such deep insights into the Indo-Pacific region and the challenges and the problems. And it gave me a new perspective, because till now we were actually looking at it from a purely environmental perspective. And the kind of dimensions that came forward were really amazing. And within that context, I wanted to highlight one important aspect, and I was listening to the economic advisor very carefully, and he talked a lot about climate budget, the climate crisis, climate adaptation. But I think as an industry and as a Chamber of Commerce, you need to be mindful of not only climate change, meaning it's like in Bengali we say Sab dosh, nanda ghosh. Everything comes to climate change, you know. There are two more major crises that the planet is facing: the crisis of nature and the crisis of pollution. The third crisis, of course, is the crisis of climate. And as an industry, Chamber of Commerce, as an important stakeholder working on economic transformation, you cannot overlook the nature of the crisis of nature and the crisis of pollution. And from an Indo-Pacific perspective, the crisis of nature is so much important that you really need to look at it very, very closely. I was hearing in the morning about the Joint Secretary from the MEA was talking about blue economy. And I certainly would like to mention from your perspective that India and Norway have signed a blue economy agreement 4 years back, 5 years back, 4 or 5 years back, which really is an amazing framework for cooperation on blue economy issues, whether they're economic, social, or environmental and sustainable development related. And I think that is an area where the Bengal Chamber should be actively involved in terms of trying to see what are those important facets that are being implemented and discussed, whether it's shipping or maritime routes. It has a huge gamut of activities that are happening under that, and Norway is certainly at the leadership level, the front runner for blue economy issues for a variety of reasons. Another aspect which I think the Chamber should certainly be looking at, and I was seeing the website, and you have such a strong environment and energy vertical, which will affect whatever activities you're trying to do for Indo-Pacific area and region, is the international negotiations that are going on at this stage on plastics. I was hearing with a lot of interest the single-use plastic issues, the plastic economy. There are international negotiations, of course. It's been now 4 years. They haven't reached an agreement. They were supposed to reach an agreement a couple of months back in Geneva, but again, the talks were stalled. But that's an important area which I think your economy, the environment and energy vertical should certainly be looking at, because it's going to affect that international treaty, which will come in force in another year's time, once it's agreed, will affect a lot of activities that are going to take place in the Indo-Pacific area. I'll just give you an example of how the whole international thinking is going towards international waters. Last week, Max Planck Institute gave their first award to a young professor in the University of Cambridge who's been working for the last 10 to 12 years on international water agreements. Her research is, and they wanted to highlight the fact that these are becoming very, very important areas of international thinking, and that's where I think the Chamber of Commerce really needs to invest their time. I will close my statement, because I know there's a panel discussion also and there's a lunch waiting, that industry, and this was, I was talking to Devashish just before this, industry really needs to take the lead. Don't wait for the governments, please. Meaning, I know governments rule economies, they run economies, but I think we need to go in for a paradigm shift. The industry has to be the front runner rather than be just an onlooker to what the governments are doing. And that's where it's not only policy that is important, but the whole technological innovation that you'll have to bring in. Only you can lead it. No one else can do that. And I was giving an example of international agreement, the Montreal Protocol, which is a prime example of how at an international level, industry can lead to not only international collaboration, but a whole technological change that happened in the refrigeration and air conditioning industry, because the industry was spearheading. The governments, of course, came up with an agreement, but it was the industry that was really calling the shots. And I think that is what needs to be done in most of the other areas that you're all working on. And this whole framework, in India, we have a very old saying, Atithi Devo Bhav, that the guest we treat as a god. Any guest who comes to our house is treated as a god. And I would like to take that step further, that in our mindset as industry leaders, in our mindset as multilateral organizations, or whatever stakeholder you are representing, our mindset has to look at nature as the god, Prakriti Devo Bhav, because that's the most important. If that is the mindset, then we'll be able to cross over this whole sustainable development challenge that we're all facing. Thanks a lot for inviting me, and it was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, sir. May I request Mr. Obijit Banerjee, our Senior Vice President, to kindly come up to the dais and do the honors here. Token of appreciation to Shri Atul Bagai, please. Can we have the mementos, please? Thank you so much. Can I have a round of applause, please? Shri Bagai is doing a day trip from Delhi, all the way from Delhi for this. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for managing your schedule.